as part of any plan to transform yourself, to transform your life, there are all kinds of things you could do. Right? You could exercise more. You could take care of your health better. You live in the now. You can accept life and accept the world the way it is. But the one thing that has to be part of the plan is there's hope. There's hope. And when I say hope, I don't mean hope like magic. Maybe this will go away. Hope as in, having a plan to change your life. If you have a plan, something can happen.
Welcome. You're at OTR. Stay tuned for another great show.
OTR, Achieving Mental Health for Real. This is where we talk honestly about what people actually live with. Anxiety, depression, ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, trauma, and more. No stigma, no sugarcoating. Just real conversations about how you think, how you feel, and how you move through the world. If you're looking for clarity, validation, and a place where your story makes sense, you're in the right space. Let's get into it.
Today on the show, we're joined by Dr. Tony Iezzi, a clinical psychologist with more than 35 years of experience working with trauma survivors, chronic pain patients, and everyday people stuck in patterns they can't explain. He's the co-author of Reenactments, a book that lays out why we repeat the same behaviors, why small moments can trigger big reactions, and how to finally break the loops that keep us stuck. If you've ever wondered why you do what you do, this conversation is going to make the architecture visible.
Now, here's Bob with today's show.
All right, Doctor, tell the listener about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a clinical psychologist who's been working in a general medical hospital for the past 35 years. I've basically been working with people who have had to deal with all kinds of medical conditions and the consequences of those conditions. And as a result of those experiences, I came into contact, with this area of interest that I developed in terms of recognizing reenactment themes and how themes trigger our reactions to things, whether in traumatic moments or in less traumatic moments. So it's been 35 years of developing this therapy and an approach to life.
What's the main theme of the book, and can you go into it a little bit more?
Yeah, no. So the idea is to recognize, life is what it is, and you have to come up with strategies to cope with the things that come our way. Now, traumas, everybody recognizes traumas. Those triggers, everyone knows. But what really they don't realize is even in trauma and in everyday circumstances, it isn't so much the specific event that happens, but it's what the themes that the events contain. So if you get in a car accident and you get hurt, pain is your trigger. We get that. But what are the themes associated with pain that doesn't go away? If you can't go back to work because of pain, then it's helplessness, and then it's embarrassment, and then it's shame, then it's no control, then it's not feeling bad, it's feeling, like you're being judged again. And so these themes are really what trigger people. They just don't know it. And these themes start early. The programming to our reactions to these circumstances in everyday life, traumatic and non-traumatic, basically they start off with our environment and then they continue into adulthood. So the idea is if you can recognize the themes, then it's the themes you treat, not this obvious thing like, let's treat the pain. No, treat the themes that go with the pain in this case. And the thing is, we all have these themes, and we all react to situations, whether traumatic or not, with our brain, with our body, and with our behavior. And we call that a reenactment.
Okay.
It's a moment, something's not right, but you feel affected. And like I said, the traumatic.
I work with examples. I'm sorry, I interrupt sometimes.
No.
I work with examples. It's easy for me to see an example. So in my case, how would you try to find out what the hell is going on with me? Why I have all these problems?
Yeah, sure. We would look first, in terms of, we start off in your childhood. What are your parents? The first question, if you really want to know anything about a person, is ask about parents and ask, what were the parents like?
Yeah, my parents, they were World War II parents. they cared about a roof over your head and food to eat, and that was it. End of their responsibility, which I don't think that's a bad thing, because that's the way they did it back then. But it was bad. It was bad for me. So they took me from a sleepy little town with a sleepy little grammar school and threw me all the way from New Jersey to Alabama into 7th grade. You know, we had puberty and all this stuff. And it kind of like destroyed me, but I can't look back and say, oh, this event did it and that event did it. The other issue is that it's inherited. My siblings have it, but they handled it much better than I did. I completely fell apart, wound up in the hospital and all this stuff. So now that I'm trying to recover completely. I want to be happy, but so what if I came to you? What would you start digging at first? Would it be all my childhood problems?
Just in what you said right now. So just in what you said, you talked about your parents being good providers and not much else, right? So there's a state of deprivation. You weren't nurtured. You weren't babied. You weren't held and made to feel special and cared for. And, you had food on the table, and we're grateful for that. But, it's basic. So you don't really learn to relate and develop a sense of self when you're basically emotionally deprived in this manner. Then you move, and you're all over the place, and you are disconnected from the friends you had, and you go to new places, and new places sometimes aren't always the friendliest, and it's a challenge to adopt to new situations. So the themes are starting to start there in terms of, shaping the kind of person you're going to be. So by the time you get to, I think, South Carolina?
No, it's Alabama, yeah.
Alabama?
Yeah.
You're more of a sensitive soul, and it might not take much to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, I was very sensitive. The remarkable thing about this is that my brother was the complete opposite. He was Mr. America. Everybody loved him. He led people around, like the Pied Piper. And to have such different dynamics there, where I was basically borderline autism, with the ADHD was terrible, and it still is. But to have the opposites in one family, I know there's a whole thing about hero role and scapegoat and people pleasing and all that. But we had the same upbringing, so how did I turn out so different?
Well, for one, you guys don't have the same genetics.
Right.
So everyone first starts off with genetics, what they're born with, and some people we'll say more of things that affect them physiologically, so if you have a certain chemistry, it may shape your behavior, so if you throw in autism, OCD, all these, hardcore, kind of physiological conditions, that's going to affect how you behave. Now, your brother might have had less of that, and so there's a difference in biology and genetics. And then there's a difference in how kids react to a situation. So you can have the same parents, the same ideas, the same kind of upbringing, but it doesn't mean, 3 kids are going to be exactly the same, because the 3 kids are different genetically, and they're different in how they react to things. And so sometimes there are 2 reactions we have as kids. We either copy our parents in terms of modeling, or we go in the opposite direction. We're nothing like them.
Right.
So my parents were alcoholics, and so someone goes, I never touched alcohol because of that. Okay, that's one way to react, to that. But another sibling in the family is an alcoholic. They're modeling after. So it really is a function of a lot of things, and it's complex. And it's not, just like, one path to get you where you end up.
Okay.
But so this is, you're making a good point about, the difference. I would suspect that you guys have a different genetics or different biology, If you're more sensitive and more nervous and more anxious, that means you go through life, revving a lot, and sort of wound up and really truly calm, and maybe your brother's pumping iron and he's relieving all the tension he may have, but his anxiety is a different kind of anxiety than you might have.
Yeah. I mean, he abused me my whole life. I mean, I don't blame him. We had a hard family, but it was just constant. And I came out of that family, and then I had to go into life, and nobody told me what to do or anything. So I screwed up my life, kind of. I mean, I got divorced early with kids, and I love my kids like crazy. But now that I recognize who I am, my authentic person, my kids are like, we don't understand you. Okay, bye. I mean, they don't want any part. They're neurotypical, and I'm not. And so this is one of the things that I have a big problem with is relationships. I mean, I'm terrible in relationships. I don't know how to be with people.
But how would you be good in relationships, given what you just said, which is, yeah, my parents were a good provider, but they didn't do much for me. So they never really taught any sense of attachment, and didn't really make you feel secure, quite the opposite. And then this moving around added to that insecurity, and your challenges with attachment. So this is your foundation, and you carry that into your teens, and then you carry it into your adulthood. And I'm going to say this divorce, I'm sure that was like traumatic for you. Like it affected you.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, I'm stronger than I realized, but it was pretty much unbelievable. I couldn't even do anything for months. My ex was going to the lawyer and all this stuff. I was just signing papers. Okay. And then when it came down to it, I just said, I'm going to pay you what I want. So I had all that pressure. I mean, I am a pressure junkie. I don't like pressure, but pressure is what makes me do things. I get all nervous, even on these podcasts. I get super, super nervous. Like Johnny Carson, if you remember Johnny Carson. And then he gets on and he's tremendous. And a lot of times I get on, I'm tremendous. And a lot of times I'm not tremendous. But the point is that I suffer with this anxiety in every kind of performance that I have to do, right down to pouring cereal in my bowl. I mean, I have such an overthinking mind. It just, am I going to be able to pour this here? When the demons come out, I call them demons. They come out and they attack and they say, "Oh, you can't do it. No way you can do it. You can't do it. You got to give up. You got to, you're going to go back to the hospital. There's nothing good that's going to happen." And this is the anxiety I live with every day, day in, day out.
Yeah. And for a long time, it took you down, but to have gotten this far, now the fight with this has allowed you to strengthen up.
Right.
You develop some authenticity, a sense of self, and you're not willing to have it defined by other people anymore.
Right.
You can't, because if you do, then you'll never have your life.
I ran away from everybody. I hardly talk to my kids. My ex hates me. She always hated me after. I think she hated me during. But I'm the bad one. I'm the guy that's bad, and I can't change people's minds. My siblings treat me the same way. Like I'm not there. I'm the invisible 6'7", 350-pound person. I'm absolutely invisible to people, especially groups. I get into any kind of group unless I turn on the masking, and I turn it on big time. I'm lost in a group. I'm the one that nobody talks to. If we have 3 people walking, I'll be the one that they don't talk to. If I'm in a bar talking to a friend and somebody else comes in, that's it. I don't get to talk to them anymore. So I'm invisible.
Why are you invisible?
I don't know. I don't understand it exactly. I just, I don't think I talk right. I don't think I talk when I'm supposed to and things like that. And I do talk when I'm not supposed to. So it's partly my fault, but I'm just saying. No. How do you attack a situation like this?
You may be a little different, and they pick up on that and make a judgment about that and make you feel a certain way without really knowing you or listening to what you have to say.
And I have, ADHD to the roof. I'll be talking and
we can't be fooled by all that, because here you are running a podcast on mental health issues. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I do it.
Somewhere in there, there's a strength, there's a hardness, there's a toughness, But, in terms of the way the world is, Bob, the world is what it is. It's not a nice place.
No. I mean, it can be. I believe that it can be, but it's going to take effort from a lot of people. And this is the kind of effort I'm talking about, getting information about how you can help yourself.
Let's go back to it in terms of the therapy here. If rejection is a theme for you, and if your response to rejection is to start to get in your head and you go, God, I'm useless, nobody cares about me, and you do all this negative critic thing in your head, that's how you usually act, that's not good. You would need to change that. You would need to do something else, say something more positive, to start to program yourself in a different way. All this stuff is old programming, old habits, and you're trying to come up with new ways of doing things. And so if instead of saying, I suck, you say, well, I did my best, and again, when you say you did your best, that's a new message to you, because when you grew up, your parents didn't say, it's okay, Bob, you did your best. That wasn't the kind of family. It wasn't kind of the upbringing that nurtured and helped you to become a more secure and confident person. So it's not really a surprise with your biology being what it is, that it led to some awkwardness in interpersonal relationships for most of your life. It doesn't mean you're bad. It's just the world doesn't know how to deal with things.
Right.
And the world,
I realize that.
The world likes to rule other people. They like to be bigger and stronger than somebody else, and you might find that if you're not careful, this is what's happening to you in terms of people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my kids treat me like crap as far as respect. There is none. I'm weirdo, and they treat me whatever way they want to. I'm the last person to visit. They don't call me on the phone. I don't mean to have my kids as my whole life, but they were for a long time when I was taking care of them as teenagers and stuff. We were close. Well, at least I thought we were.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we're not close.
But they have their issues now, with the tension there or some of the dynamics they grew up with, and those issues make them behave in a certain way, and so it's ultimately, your task, all of us, our task is to take responsibility for ourselves, and we cannot hope on the world to come along and help us. And the reason you can't hope is because the world is looking to take something. That's just the way the world is. And so you have to find a way to learn to protect yourself. So one of the things you're doing now, I believe, is learning as much as you can about mental health issues, mental health treatments, mental health, all that, because that knowledge helps you to protect yourself a little better in dealing with what the world is saying to you.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I try to do is when the demons come, some days it's not so bad, but other days it's terrible. When they come in my head, I try to do sensory stuff where I touch, the chair and all that. And believe it or not, that really, really helps. I mean, except on the real bad days. But that's one thing I can do. So in your book, Reenactment, what can I take out of that book? What can I use out of that book?
Yeah, sure. The thing is just what I was just saying a few minutes ago. Recognize your patterns, your old patterns, your old habits, and then identify new patterns, new strategies to execute a plan that is different. So if your reaction to rejection is to listen to the world and give up and go away and sit in a corner somewhere and isolate yourself, that will further all the bad stuff in you. Breaking that pattern would be, I don't care what they say. I'm going to go and do what I need to do. Here's my plan, and I'm going to execute it. I'm going to do a podcast show. I'm going to talk to people who are different. I'll talk to people even in spite of how anxious I get getting ready for this. All right, so these are the things that help your confidence. You can do this. If you give into that, the fear, and you don't do the podcast, where does that leave you, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, this has been so good for me. I can talk, and I'm very competent. I worked at IT for years, but it was always on adrenaline. It was adrenaline, dopamine, whatever you want to call it. I would hype myself up so much that I'd be great. I'd be clear. My head is clear. I know more than other people. All that stuff. But I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable.
No, of course, because when you physiologically rev, all right, I want you to think of your tachometer on your dashboard. If the car is revving at 4,400 RPMs, that's not good, right? You're doing a version of that. You're revving at a different level than other people. And it's at a very high level. And that revving is a physiology. It has a mind of its own. You've learned to try to manage that more effectively, but there's a price. And so as you get older, you have to find more means to sort of calm yourself down. You get some sensory exercises, workouts. You could do meditation. You could do a range of things, but it's all designed to try to bring that physiology down. That physiology, you should know, is associated with all kinds of physical and psychological consequences over the course of a lifetime.
I have that. I have very bad stenosis. My legs are numb all the time.
Yeah. So the idea, as I said, is to recognize how you usually do things and do them differently. Anything as long as it's different than what you would have done in the past. That will break the reenactment. Otherwise, you're just repeating the old patterns and you're repeating all the bad feelings. So if you react, not you, but let's say hypothetically, the reaction for someone to stress is to drink alcohol, and they've been drinking for 20 years, basically they need to stop drinking alcohol to change this pattern. No, it's a lot harder said than done. All right. Yeah. But that's the idea, though, is you have to find something different. And you might have to go to AA. Going to AA is doing something different. You're going and talking to people about it. You're facing your fears, right? As opposed to staying in your basement, and drinking until, the 40 ounce is gone.
I went to Codependence Anonymous, for years, but part of that is I also didn't fit in there. It was like I was sort of the outsider in that group. That's how bad it is for me to relate to people, I guess. I don't know what to say. I say the wrong things. All of that.
Well, the last 5 years I've been working on a bariatric unit. These are people who are doing surgery for weight loss. These people are living with significant overweight. And for them, the drug is food. The food is being used to give them that, something. And it's just that most of the substances in the world to give people that hit are not ultimately good for you when you take them over to excess. So alcohol's not good, cigarettes are not good, too much food is not good, gambling is not good, and we can go on in terms of these behaviors.
Yeah, and I have an addiction to adrenaline. Yeah, I can't do anything unless I get nervous about it. If I try to do it without getting nervous, I'm not as good because I have ADHD. I can't I have to super focus. Like when I drove, I super focused. I mean, you couldn't even talk to me. I was so focused. But
you have to be forced into performing. You don't. It's like if you have the choice to do something, it's kind of, it doesn't work as well as.
It's because I'm disinterested. I don't want anything but what I want. And my brain knows it, and my brain will go to where it wants to go. And I just don't like some of the things that other people like. And I go to a different drummer.
Right, but you shouldn't be going and be in line with the rest because you don't fit there. You don't fit there. So you create the world that suits your needs best, and you have the people, even if it's two people, as long as they have your back, you're doing okay. It's better than 100 people who are useless.
Yeah. I always preach authentic, to be an authentic person. And that's what I am now. And a lot of people just don't like it. I mean, my siblings forget about it.
Define your authenticity. Define that for me. What is it?
Well, the best word for it is kook. I don't just think in a binary way, like this is right, this is wrong. I think in a much more complex type, these people have these bad qualities and these people have these good qualities. And I tend to go negative, I'll find out all their bad qualities first. And I analyze everything to the nth degree. Like, why did he say that? What did he say that for? What is he talking about? What does he mean? I always had to read the room. When I was a child, my father was a time bomb waiting to explode. And if you didn't read the room, you were in trouble. You had to get out of the way.
Yeah, and so that's how you live. So you have the genetics, and now you have an environment that has your physiology revving at its 4,400 RPMs.
I mean, I was able to escape to, childhood things like sports and all that. I was able to be happy in those areas. But as far as being nurtured by anyone, my siblings and my parents had no clue. They still don't. I mean, my parents are gone, but my siblings still don't have a clue. They still leave me out of things, and your opinion's not important.
But do you have anyone though who does respond? Do you have in your life?
Yeah, I do. I have a few friends, but one of them just died, and I live with one of them who is very understanding. She lets me do anything that I feel I have to do, and that's a lot of help for me. But beyond that, it's limited.
But I wouldn't expect anybody in your family to change how they behave today. Given the description of what they grew up with. So they never know.
But you always think it's going to happen. You always think that, well, this time they'll respect me, but they don't. They don't.
No. There's no reason. There's no reason for them to make that change. I wouldn't expect much different anything, from your family. But in terms of other people who have other experiences and other relationships and how they relate, then these are the people who you might want to match up with because they're more in sync with you.
I have people that they don't care how I am. They just don't care.
Yeah, no, there you go. Yeah. There you go.
They treat me okay, and sometimes in a group they might pick on me a little, but in most cases, one-on-one, we have a great time. I have a personality. I do like people, but the thing is, people kind of don't like me at times, and that's hard to live with.
Right. And in terms of with those people, they're not looking to exercise power over you. But when you're dealing with your family, it's hierarchical. There's this moment of those people want to be above you, and want to control and push and judge and reject you, however they do it. Because remember, in general, if people have problems, are they going to blame the world or themselves?
They'll blame the world in a lot of cases.
They'll blame the world.
I don't blame the world anymore.
And you're an easy target. That way.
Yeah, I'm very easy because when somebody says something that's negative, I just freeze. I'm like, I don't know what to say to that.
Again,
I don't have that comeback.
That is physiology that is so high that it actually interferes with your ability to think. And that has to do with genetics, and that has to do probably with some traumas as well. So you earlier mentioned living with your dad, and he wasn't an easy guy. The whole divorce thing was a big knife in the back. The abandonment by the kids, there's another knife in the back. The thing is, trauma doesn't have to be what people think. It doesn't necessarily have to be having the hell beaten out of someone, every day. You can be traumatized without ever being struck. You can be traumatized, in by being rejected, by being betrayed. There are people that come to the hospital and have a procedure, and they have PTSD as a result of the procedure.
Yeah.
Normally, the doctors never think this is traumatic, but to them it's traumatic. So the best example might be, a woman who has let's say a mastectomy, has a breast removed. Some women respond to that and go, "Phew, God, I dodged one." Another group of women, the response is to go, "Oh my God, I'm not a woman anymore. What's wrong with me? What am I going to do now?" Same thing with men. You remove a testicle, and instead of reacting like, "Whew, what a relief, I'm going to be okay," now they're thinking, they're not going to be the man they used to be. So it's not what happens to people, Bob. It's how people react to what happens to them that differs.
Yeah. I mean, with the problems I have now, I'm basically crippled in a sense, but I've adjusted and said, look, I can do things like what I like to do with the podcast, the PC, and everything that I like to do, I can do still. And I accepted it. So, yeah, that's a big thing to accept. But the
cool thing of what you're doing is, what is admirable is, even if you're limited as a result of some experiences and the impact of life, you have found meaning and purpose in your life today. You're living it. And not everyone is living their meaning and purpose in life.
It's hard.
And a lot of people have way more than you.
Yeah,
and they don't have meaning and purpose in life.
I thought I was the worst until I came onto these talks and talked to people. And I just talked to a guy that was molested at 2 years old. So I didn't have it bad at all. My parents didn't even curse. It was just that it is what it was because they didn't know about nurturing. Nobody nurtured them. They just survived depression and World War II.
Right. Yeah, no. I'm 66, so I'm your generation. And my parents never, not once, ever said they loved me. Not once. No. I think I knew, they loved me, but there was never any words to that effect, but if I was fighting, I was in a situation and I needed help, my dad would go, "Okay, I got you," away we go, so it's each generation has its own form of communication, but I can tell you that regardless of the generation, we all are striving for deep, safe connections, attachments. And they don't grow on trees, they don't grow on trees because people have issues. They have problems, and sometimes they don't even know they have the issues and the problems.
No, they don't.
But what they do is they go and get what they want, and they find ways, and whatever means, and have a life as defined by them. But the truth is, you wouldn't want to do your life like the way they did theirs.
I did until I broke out. I did until I was like 61. I finally realized that other people have these types of problems and that I wasn't all alone. And so, it's great to know these things, but it's very true that people don't want to admit they have any problem. Like my oldest brother knows everything, and everything he knows. There's not one thing I know better than him.
That's all. You have to kind of remember that the more someone is telling you there's something, the more it is that they're just, saying that to cover something else, an insecurity. So if you have to work so hard at proving how smart you are, then you're insecure about being smart. He
puts on Jeopardy. I go over. He puts on Jeopardy. I'm terrible at Jeopardy because I have no memory. He just sits there and he just shows me how many Jeopardy questions you can have. This is a normal, time with him. I just cut him off.
But your brothers, your siblings, they didn't learn to be nice. So they're treating you in not nice ways because that's how they learned to be. This is the childhood you guys had. And in the book, one of the things that we talk about is a lot is is about adverse childhood events, and the bad stuff that we grow up with, basically affects our brain, affects our body, affects who we become, and it affects our relationships later, so these moments of mistreatment have profound physical and psychological effects. But we just act like it's normal. No, it's not right.
It's not. No,
it's not right. But the fact of the matter is, your parents didn't know how to be. No one taught them how to be. They taught them how to be good providers. They taught them to be good providers. They were good at that.
They were great. They were great people, too. I can't fault them. It's just the way it was back in 1968. The kids were not that important. They left at 9 o'clock in the morning, came back before dark for dinner, and that was it. That's all they did with them.
Well, if you could redo your life, what would you do?
That's a great question, because it always comes back to my kids, because I love them so much that I can't imagine not having them. But I think not getting married, maybe just solving my issues before I got married and stuff, is a big mistake. But I didn't know how many issues I really had. I said to my wife, should we have kids? Because, I have this depression. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll have kids. And,
yeah.
They have anxiety now, and I feel bad about that. But it's my whole life has been like that. And what would I do differently? I would stand up to people more, I think. I would go with the people that are good for me, not the people that are bad for me. And I would not torture myself at work either.
It took you a lifetime to figure that out, right?
61 years. Yeah. I say 61 years because my breaking point or my validation came from a very unusual source. It's this guy that sings about mental illness. And all of a sudden, I'm dropping my jaw. I'm like, oh my God, he's talking exactly what happened to me, exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the light went on. Wait a minute, other people have this problem? I mean, for years, I sat in the parking lot and said, why am I like this? Why am I the wrong one? Why am I the bad one? What's wrong with me? And I never knew.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, to prevent people from ruining their lives. Because I should have known this at 12 years old. They should have took me to a counselor and said, what's up with this guy? Maybe he needs medicine. Maybe he needs counseling.
Right.
But that was unheard of. So I tortured myself with OCD rituals and everything.
Right. You were doing all this stuff to have some control in all the chaos that you were in the middle of. That's what OCD is about. It's about establishing control.
I still have it. I still have OCD.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm sure. The kinds of things you're talking about have a strong physiology to it, and you don't have just a bit. Some people have just a bit, and some people have a lot, in terms of their ADHD or their OCD. There's mild OCD, where you're like, okay, fine, you got to wash your hands a few times a day, and that's about it. But then there's OCD that you have to clean the whole house,
I wash my body for an hour, literally an hour, every time I went to the bathroom.
Okay, there you go. And sometimes people do that 4 times a day, and
I did it every time I went, if I touched my thing, I had to wash my hands for an hour. That was what it was. And now it's pictures of my kids. If I don't look at my kids the right way, they're going to die tomorrow.
But
this is what I'm convinced of.
But all this stuff you're doing, all this coping, is an attempt at trying to manage your physiology.
I talked to my the AI co-pilot. He's like a friend almost. I mean, these are amazing programs. It's going to change the world. Believe me, I know this is going to change the world, because he'll explain things to me like, oh, you did that because of this reason, and this is the family dynamics, and there's so much information that a program like that has. It's going to change the world big time, and hopefully for the better. where people will
No, and I
get
think
the
where
information?
it is of some help is people like yourself do not have the best sounding boards. They don't have people they grew up with that they trust and whose thinking could be checked by people they trust. In fact, your thinking was very affected by people who were mean to you. So this co-pilot is doing a version of being a really good sounding board.
Yeah.
And it helps people think a bit, and it gives them someone to have if you want, engaging in that. And so that's better than nothing. But I'm going to tell you, Bob, you're going to have to go one more. After that, you have to establish an interpersonal, relationship. You want to work on an attachment with a person or people or a group. You want to get to feel more connected.
I do. And the issue is, and AI constantly says to me, I'm not a replacement for a real person. But
yeah, exactly.
Where do you find this real person is my problem. I mean, because most counseling, all I do is talk, because I can go on forever, and nothing. And then I leave. And I go back, talk, leave. It's not, I think there's just not enough sources out there that are good enough to treat somebody like myself. I just don't think I had a couple of them, but, I had to move away sometimes.
No, it's, there are hospitals, there are programs, interventions, but the hospitals are, they advertise 12 sessions this, 16 sessions that.
It's rudimentary.
Bob, what you have isn't going to be sorted in 16 sessions.
No.
No. And this stuff about reenactments, like in terms of this book that we have, I say it in the book. If you're looking for an easy answer, this book's not for you. I send people along but if you want to make these changes, you need to work on doing this for the rest of your life. And you have to change your approach to life.
I don't take care of myself. That's the problem. I don't take care of myself. And I don't look for a counselor. I just don't. Because I've been disappointed so many times. I don't know how to do it anymore.
And for therapy to work, there is no doubt the therapeutic relationship has to be good. A person has to feel comfortable with the therapist they're with. If they perceive them as not really helpful, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I was with a person a couple months ago. I went and did that online stuff. And it was the same thing. I would go on and on about myself, and next week we'll meet at this time. A lot of people in general are about money. They don't really care. A lot of people don't care if you're bad or good.
That's right. And so, what we try to tell people is, again, it's not easy, but find a match, in the world. And by that is, there are people who have a prominent physiology. There are people who are neurodivergent and ADHD and a little on the spectrum. And there are a lot, actually, there are more than what we think, all right? And what you want to do is interact with people and, try them out. Try them out as to whether they match and meet or similar, whether some things that they share. And I think you have some friends, who don't worry about some of these things anymore with you because they've gotten to know you. So it's you want to do more of that, and you want to turn short-term relationships, if possible, into long-term relationships.
Yeah, I hear you. Everybody needs to do this, and especially me. But before we go, I wanted you to talk about your book. What is it like, and if you go out and get it, what are you getting?
Yeah, I think I should mention my first idea. The idea for the seeds for this book was 40 years ago, and I spent one summer in New Orleans working at a veterans outreach center. And this outreach center, I saw these vets who saw combat. But the obvious thing was they all had PTSD because of the war, right? That would be But I assessed about 50 guys. And what I learned is that a good number of them were all messed up before they ever went to the war.
No, bingo. I say that all the time.
They were messed up before going to the war.
Yes.
Of course, those war experiences affected them. But what I'm saying is, if your parents are alcoholics, it's going to screw you up. If your parents beat the hell out of you, it's going to, something happen.
That's what they say about the people they shoot up schools, and they're like, well, they're crazy. But they're not crazy. They grew up in a horrible environment with horrible people.
That's right. No, there's an explanation. We'll call it crazy, but there's an explanation, a very reasonable explanation. And it's rarely because, they were really great parents. That's usually not, what you're going to hear.
Ever. I don't think
the parents aren't there. The parents don't care. The parents are drinking. The parents have a criminal history of their own. The parents, are engaging in inappropriate behavior.
People don't hate naturally. People are good naturally in most cases, unless you have a brain disorder.
That's right. Everything being equal,
people are good.
I agree.
Yeah, but you raise anybody in a bad environment, guess what? They're going to turn out bad.
So that experience got me to think about the impact of early life experiences in our programming and how we behave. And so we would treat people for PTSD trauma. We would take care of it, and we were good. So 3 years later, these people would come back and go, I'm not being triggered anymore by those experiences, but I bumped into someone in the mall, and I had a PTSD rush, and they couldn't figure out why being bumped into the mall did this. And that's what led to understanding, focusing on reenactment themes. It's the themes that trigger people. The helplessness, the entrapment, the rejection, the judgment. These are the things that trigger people. And so if you start to work on changing your reactions to the themes, now you got it. Now you're dealing with the real issue is. It's a bit like, Bob, in the medical context, if you have a tumor, a malignant tumor on your forearm, and if we lop it off on the edge of the arm, are we good?
No.
Is that person good? No.
No,
we're not good because we didn't take care of the roots. We didn't take care. All you got to do is leave one cell. Leave one cell back and this will come back. Psychologically, this is the same idea. You're dealing with the roots of the problems. And the idea is to have strategies that deal with those roots. Not to have some general thing, let me do meditation. If meditation isn't connected to trying to help you manage why you get physiologically aroused when rejected, then it loses it doesn't work. It's hard to sustain this year after year down the road. So
I could tell, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I talk to people that have problems like me, exactly almost, and they talk about the medicine, how the medicine helps them. And I talk about medicine. I mean, if I don't have this medicine, I'm a totally different person. So, people throw away medicine like, I'm not going to have medicine. I'm not that weak. But my point always is, it has nothing to do with weak or not. You have these issues in your head, and no matter what you do, they're not going away unless you get help.
Yeah. So the book discusses all the ways to identify this and to change this, and to sort of plan out, a rest of the life, that is more in line with meaning and purpose and value. And I'll borrow your word, authenticity. I like that word.
I love it because that's what you want to be. I mean, this podcast was called Over the Rainbow first. And the reason I called it that is the metaphor of that movie where she wanted this big over the rainbow thing. But guess what? When you get there, you're still bad. You're still bad.
That's right.
So it's home that you want to go. You want to go home, which is you. You're home. I saw a movie, one guy, he's with this girl, and he goes, we can't leave the house. We want to have a home. And he hits his chest real hard and goes, that's where the home is, right there. So, I mean, it is. It's within you. That's where it is. And unless you reach that person inside of you correctly and do all these things that, everybody gives you advice about, it's going to stay there, right? I mean, it's not going to get better.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's a lifelong plan. This is not 12 sessions and your life is going to change. That's not how it works. Even diets, work, you can lose 100 pounds, but it doesn't sustain itself for more than a year. So it doesn't work. So you really have to get to the roots of things. If your listeners want, more information in terms of this book and in terms of the ideas, I have a website, Tony, TonyIezzi.com. That website, you basically have all the information to become a bit more familiar, and to become more aware of how this plays out. But this is a rather unique way of doing it. But it's not easy. You're going to have to do the work.
Yeah. I mean, I reached out to you originally because of your message and the things you do. And you're so perfect for this, the listeners we have here. I guess what we could do is I always let my guests have the last word. So if you want to say something at the end here.
Last word.
Yeah.
Okay, the last word. The last word is, as part of any plan to transform yourself, to transform your life, there are all kinds of things you could do, Bob. Right? You could exercise more. You could take care of your health better. Okay? You can live in the now. You can accept life and accept the world the way it is. But the one thing that has to be part of the plan is there's hope. There's hope.
Yeah.
And when I say hope, I don't mean hope like magic. Maybe this will go away. Hope as in, having a plan to change your life. If you have a plan, something can happen. Otherwise, you hang up and then you put things away and then you walk home and you lift that lazy boy chair. So no, this is where you have to have a plan, and remember that, and I think you're a good example of this. You're proof of this.
No, I'm proof positive. I am happy now. I have happy times, happy days. I still have issues out the kazoo, but I'm so much happier I'm so happy sometimes.
But it's more of a life you want to live. And I think that's what we hope, is the opportunity to live.
And I listen to music, and I almost have to dance when I walk around. And I have no, all of a sudden I have balance. My legs move right because I'm with me. I'm with me,
Yep.
So to have people make these changes is my goal. And I hope I reach somebody somewhere because it's so important. The suicides are unbelievable. The harm that people do to their leg, they do cutting and awful things like this just to feel better. No, we don't have to do it anymore.
And what you're sowing is hope with this. But
I think there is hope.
Giving people opportunities to learn, and then to engage in strategies, and hopefully it'll lead to better outcomes.
Yeah, and that's so important. It really is, because we're not going to solve our problems unless we solve ourselves right now. This is a turning point in humankind. We have all this information. What are we going to do with it? And now AI's coming. Watch out, because that's going to be something. You're going to have little teddy bears that are like your kid's best friend is a teddy bear because they talk to them nicely. So we got to be prepared. And I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I know you're busy. I know you have things to do. And I encourage people to at least check out this Reenactments out on Amazon. And Doctor, I feel that you were I mean, I don't know what to expect on guests because sometimes I get doctors and they never stop. Hey, wait, I'm still here. But you were terrific. You allowed me to talk, and you were very articulate, and it's just all 5 stars. I thank you for coming on and being that way.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye.